Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel, Bachelor Nation News fans. What if I told you that one of the most dramatic love stories from Paradise didn't end where we thought it did? What if the real truth about Parisa Shifteh and Brian Autz's breakup wasn't just about distance, timing, or the cameras, but about something much deeper, something neither of them wanted to admit until now? Tonight, we peel back the curtain on a reunion that has fans buzzing, secrets that have finally surfaced, and the shocking reality of who truly ended it all. Buckle up, because this isn't just another Bachelor Nation love story. It's a lesson about choices, heartbreak, and second chances. To understand this reunion, we have to rewind. Parisa Shifteh, known for her radiant confidence and compassionate spirit, met Brian Autz, a charming yet reserved contestant, under the golden skies of Paradise. Their connection was instant, like the kind of spark you only read about in novels. They weren't the loudest couple, but they were the ones people quietly rooted for. The way Parisa looked at Brian and the way Brian seemed to soften whenever she was near, it wasn't just television magic. It was real, or so we thought. But as the cameras rolled and the weeks unfolded, cracks began to show. And it wasn't just the usual reality TV drama, this was something far more complicated. And here's where the story hooks us, because every fairy tale romance has a turning point, a moment when what seems indestructible begins to tremble. For Parisa and Brian, that tremble started earlier than anyone realized. In the world of Paradise, image is everything. Parisa and Brian became the couple who embodied stability, walking hand in hand, avoiding explosive fights, always looking picture perfect. But perfection often hides imperfection. Friends from the cast later revealed that Parisa felt Brian pulling away long before the finale. He would change the subject when marriage or commitment came up, always quick with a joke, always careful not to let the conversation get too real. Meanwhile, Brian reportedly confided to others that Parisa's strength intimidated him. He admired her, yes, but could he keep up with her? Could he truly be the man she deserved? We've all seen it in life, the couple that looks flawless on the outside, but wrestles with invisible battles when the world isn't looking. Brian's hesitation wasn't about not caring, it was about caring too much, to the point that it paralyzed him. Parisa, on the other hand, was ready to move forward with confidence, as she always did in her life. That imbalance was the slow crack in their foundation. On television, the breakup looked clean. Parisa and Brian parted ways respectfully, citing distance and timing. Viewers shed tears, but they believed it was mutual. Yet behind the scenes, a very different story was playing out. According to close sources, Brian was the one who pulled the trigger. He sat Parisa down, hands shaking, voice breaking, and told her he couldn't do it, not because he didn't care, but because he cared too much and was terrified of failing her. Parisa, blindsided, accepted his decision with grace, though inside she felt betrayed. The cameras caught a glimpse of her composure, but not the storm beneath it. And for years, fans wondered, was it truly mutual, or had someone been left standing in the wreckage alone? For older viewers, that scene resonates on a deeper level. We've all been in moments where someone walked away, leaving us to carry the unanswered questions. Sometimes life doesn't hand us neat explanations. It hands us silence, and it's up to us to make peace with it. Fast forward to now. After years of silence, Parisa and Brian found themselves face to face again, this time not under the heat of the Paradise sun, but in a quiet reunion setting that left fans speechless. Cameras were rolling, but this time there was no fantasy suite, no rose ceremony, no audience cheering them on. Just two people sitting across from one another, forced to confront what they had left unsaid. Parisa admitted she had carried resentment that Brian made the choice for both of them. Brian admitted he had lived with regret that he let fear dictate his future. The rawness of that exchange stunned everyone in the room. It wasn't just about who ended it, it was about who still carried the weight of it years later.
In those few minutes, the glossy images of paradise fell away. What we were left with was real, two people, flawed and vulnerable, holding up a mirror to their past. And the reflections weren't easy to face. When pressed about who really ended it, Brian finally confessed, "It was me." He admitted that the breakup wasn't mutual and that Parisa would have kept fighting for them if he hadn't stepped away. Parisa, with tears in her eyes, acknowledged that she had wanted a future with him but felt robbed of the choice. For the first time, we saw not just the heartbreak, but the honesty. Brian's fear ended their relationship, but Parisa's strength had carried her forward. Yet in that reunion moment, the chemistry was undeniable. Old wounds were reopened, but so too were old feelings. The audience leaned in, wondering, was this the beginning of healing or a second chance at love? Sometimes the answers aren't clean, and they're rarely easy. Brian owned the truth, but in doing so, he reignited questions that neither of them had prepared for. Brian looked Parisa in the eye and offered the apology fans had waited years to hear. He told her he had been a coward, that he had let insecurity steal their chance, and that not a day had gone by where he hadn't wondered, what if? Parisa, always composed, broke down. She admitted she had built walls because of him, that trusting again had been harder than she ever imagined. But hearing him take accountability shifted something in her heart. For once, the strong, independent woman allowed herself to feel the pain she had buried. And in that vulnerability, the possibility of forgiveness crept in. The room went silent. Were they simply rewriting history? Or starting a new chapter? We all know the power of an apology. It's not just words, it's the courage to face the truth. And sometimes that courage comes years too late. But does that mean it can't change everything? Now, let's step back. Why does this story matter? Why do fans years later still lean forward when Parisa and Brian's names come up? Because this isn't just about reality TV, it's about us, about the relationships we've all lost, the decisions we've second-guessed, the fears that have robbed us of something real. For many viewers, especially those of us who've lived a little longer, this story reminds us that love isn't always about fireworks. It's about courage, about choosing to stay when it's hard, about owning mistakes when you've made them. Parisa and Brian's journey is a mirror, reflecting the times in our lives when we too wondered, what if I had stayed? What if I had fought harder? And that's what makes their reunion not just entertaining, but profoundly human. This isn't just about two reality stars. It's about the quiet truth that we all carry, that even in endings, love leaves a mark. And that, perhaps, is the most shocking truth of all. So, where do Parisa and Brian stand now? Are they back together? Are they friends? Or are they simply two people closing a chapter that never really ended? The truth is, they haven't given us a definitive answer. And maybe that's the point. Some stories don't tie up neatly with a bow. Some stories linger, challenging us to accept that closure is not always about resolution, but about acceptance. Parisa and Brian may never be the couple that walks off into the sunset, holding hands, but they will always be the couple that taught us something vital, that endings are rarely as clean as they seem, and sometimes the truth surfaces only when we're ready to face it. Their journey is not finished because, in love, maybe no story ever truly is. And for the millions who watched them fall in love, fall apart, and then sit across from each other again, it's a reminder that our own stories, too, are still unfolding. So, who really ended it? The answer is Brian. But what really matters is that both of them carried the weight of that ending in their own way. And by finally speaking their truth, they've given us all something rare, a glimpse into the messy, complicated, beautiful reality of love. Whether or not they find their way back to each other, they have already done something even more powerful. They've reminded us that love is never wasted, even when it doesn't last. And that, perhaps, is the most shocking truth of all.
Believed in a love story so much, only to find out that the truth behind it was nothing like what you imagined? Tonight, we peel back the curtain on one of Paradise's most captivating couples, Parisa Shifteh and Brian Autz. Their romance seemed unstoppable, their connection undeniable, and yet, the fairy tale crumbled. But who really ended it? And why are they speaking out now at the reunion? Stay with me, because what we're about to uncover isn't just about a breakup. It's about trust, heartbreak, second chances, and the life lessons we can all carry with us. Before we even begin to explore the breakup, let's rewind. Picture this: golden sunsets in Mexico, the sound of waves crashing, and two people who seem to find each other in the middle of chaos. Parisa Shifteh, vibrant, confident, with a heart that drew people in like a magnet. Brian Autz, thoughtful, steady, and surprisingly vulnerable for a guy who usually kept his guard up. From the very beginning, fans couldn't take their eyes off them. They weren't just another Paradise couple, they were the couple. The ones people whispered about, saying, they've got what it takes to make it on the outside. And isn't that what we all root for? A love that doesn't just shine in the spotlight, but survives the quiet, unglamorous moments of real life? But, as we'll see, sometimes what looks perfect on the surface is hiding cracks underneath. Now here's where things start to get murky. Long before the camera stopped rolling, whispers began to swirl. Was Brian truly as committed as he appeared? Was Parisa giving more than she was receiving? Social media lit up with theories, fans dissecting every glance, every pause, every shift in tone. And then came the tabloid leaks, reports that someone had already started pulling away. But who? It's moments like these that remind us every relationship has its private battles. Yet, when you live in the public eye, those battles become everyone's business. The rumors set the stage, but the reunion gave us the answers. Answers that may not be what you expect. When Parisa and Brian walked onto that reunion stage, the air shifted. You could feel the tension not just between them, but across the entire room. Everyone wanted to know, who left who? Brian, usually calm and reserved, spoke first. His voice cracked ever so slightly when he admitted that he hadn't been honest about his fears. He confessed that he had doubts, not about Parisa herself, but about whether he was truly ready for a forever commitment. And then, Parisa, eyes steady, dropped the line that silenced the crowd. She said, "Brian didn't end it, I did." The audience gasped. Because for months, the narrative had been that Brian pulled away. But now, for the first time, Parisa revealed that she made the decision. Why? She said, "I couldn't keep pouring into someone who wasn't ready to catch me when I fell." Powerful, isn't it? But the story doesn't end there. Parisa's confession left fans stunned, but she went further. She explained that while Brian hesitated, she gave him every chance to show up, to prove he was in this for the long haul. And here's the kicker. He never outright ended things. He simply stayed silent. Have you ever known someone like that? Someone who doesn't walk away, but also doesn't step forward. Sometimes silence hurts more than words. Parisa revealed that the waiting, the hoping, became unbearable. So, she made the choice to cut the cord. Not because she stopped loving him, but because she started loving herself enough to let go. It's a reminder that endings aren't always about failure. Sometimes they're about courage. Of course, Brian had his own truth to share. He admitted that his silence wasn't meant to hurt Parisa. In his words, "I thought I was protecting her from my doubts. I thought if I stayed quiet, maybe I could figure it out." But the problem with silence is this. It leaves the other person to fill in the blanks.
And more often than not, those blanks are filled with pain. He choked up as he admitted he regrets not being braver, not telling Parisa what was really going on in his head, not trusting her enough to let her in on the messy parts of his heart. And yet, as he spoke, you could see the lingering affection in his eyes. A part of him still wonders if letting go was the biggest mistake of his life. So, what does all this mean for us sitting at home, watching from our couches? Whether we've been married for 40 years, divorced twice, or still searching for the one, there's a message here. Parisa showed us the strength in choosing ourselves, even when it hurts. Brian reminded us that vulnerability, scary as it may be, is the only bridge that can carry love across the storms. Their reunion wasn't just about who ended it. It was about what happens when love meets fear, and how the choices we make in those moments shape our lives forever. And if you're wondering, could they ever find their way back to each other? Well, that's the cliffhanger they left us with. So there you have it. The shocking truth of who really ended Parisa and Brian's paradise love story and why. It wasn't about blame, but about bravery. It wasn't about endings, but about beginnings. Because here's the thing, heartbreak doesn't mean you failed. It means you've lived. And sometimes the greatest love story isn't the one you share with someone else. It's the one you finally discover with yourself. Now, I have to ask you, do you think Parisa and Brian are truly finished? Or could this be another chapter in a love story still being written? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this is one conversation we all need to be part of. And don't forget to subscribe, because trust me, the next reveal from Paradise is going to be even more unbelievable.